Hello there and welcome back to the channel, and also welcome back to Nomoi Bay, our tropical island zoo and resort. In today's episode we're building a home for our colony of little blue penguins, as well as rounding off the last habitats in our Oceania section at this end of the beach. Without further ado then, let's jump on into that speed build. So first off, with today's build we're going to build our ocean path. This is running under where our ocean used to be, and it was an actual pain in the head to get that sorted because we had to basically take out the ocean and put it back in again. Once we've got that though, we'll section it off with barriers and then we're onto the terrain. So we're going to keep it fairly flat with a bit of a sloped beach. They're only small birds, they need to be able to get in and out nice and easy. We're going to cheat a little with the platypus habitat, and we're going to use the in-game chain link fence. Most of this is going to be submerged, so you won't really tell that we've not used a custom one there. With the barriers down, we're then moving on to our staff platform, as well as an area for our talking point. So this is going to have a little beach hut that's going to contain a keeper hut, and there'll also be the talking point for our educator to do shows from. With that made, we're then jumping over and popping in some talking point seats, so they're going to be set back off the path, and then we're on to our rockwork. Now there's a lot of rockwork in this habitat. I'm going to basically run it all the way around each path, and then we're going to turn them vertical and use them to hide a lot of the glass barrier which we need there for the water. So there you can see we've just rotated it round. I'm going to use that just to hide the difference in heights, as well as create little viewing windows for guests to see through. This will then be added together with some foliage later on, and I think it's... Now, whilst I finish off this rock work, why don't you jump on into a quick flyby of last week's restaurant area and see how much we've got on since then. Okay then, so here we go. We're going to have a quick fly over the beach area. As you can see here, we've put some time into getting this all detailed up. Then we've got our bar area from last week's episode. I have, as you'll see as we come round, added a few food trucks just for the moment, so that we've got some places for our guests to eat. We will eventually be putting in more food restaurants and more food stalls on this main avenue, which is also new. You won't have seen this yet. This is our main avenue down to our, at the moment, temporary entrance building you can see in the distance. Not quite ready to get that on camera yet. It needs quite a bit more work, but it's a start, and it's moved that entrance away from this area. Let's jump back to our speed build. So next up, we're going to build a fence for the under ocean walkway. This is basically just going to go at the bottom of the glass barrier, and we'll use it to hold back the ground and keep it nice and clear. Now, whilst we do that, I think it's probably about time to have a quick chat about the future of Nomoi Bay and the future of the channel. Now, as I've mentioned before, next up we've got our outback area, walk-through and drive-through habitat. A lovely big round off for what I'm hoping to get about 6 different species into. Following on from that, we're going to take a bit of a break with the zoo here, and we're going to be starting up 2 new series on the channel. First one being a 5-6 episode temporary series, which is going to be our Christmas woodland walk through habitat, unsure how it's going to turn out type zoo. So stick around for that one. And then a more long-term high realism British zoo called Wildlands. And that should be launching just as we enter the new year. Now, once that's launched, we will return back to Nomoi Bay here and start work on our Indonesian section. And realistically, they should then work side by side for, well, at the rate this is going, probably about another year. Really interested in hearing your feedback. Would love to know if there are any particular types of zoos you think you would like to see, or you would like us to feature on the channel here, as well as other potential things such as zoo tours, or what I would be quite interested in is if any of you would be up for sending me your broken zoos, the zoos that are just not quite working, and then we'll look to try and fix them and get them working up and running again. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and I'll read them all, comment back to them all, and we'll see where we go. Now, with this fence now finished, we're going to pop it down, give it a little bit of randomization, and then we're going to run it along our glass barrier on both sides to make that sort of concave tunnel down. While I do that, why don't you check in from our animals from the last few weeks? Starting off then with last week's superstars, the Kiwis. We have our albino male here and his female there in the background. Now, these guys have been breeding and popping out babies all over the place. consistently having to sell them every time I come in to build. And here you can see they just consistently try to fight with each other. But yeah, they're adorable, they work really well, and they're proving to be really popular. Now as we move through our cave system here and out the other side, you've got the Tasmanian devils. These guys are still one of our most popular animals for our guests, but they're pretty much all gold rated at this point. And it's just a shame we can only get 5 in here, because this habitat does look a little bit empty without them. Moving on from those, however, my favourites so far, the dingoes. Here they come. So these guys have been popping puppies out. We've had many grow up, we've traded a load out, and they're still absolutely adorable. And sometimes I'll just watch them for a bit, because they're just fun. They're just really fun animals. Right, they're all looking good, so let's move on with our walkway. So now that we've got our barriers done, we're going to clad our upper path in plaster walls, and we're going to use these just firstly to section off the roof from the lower path, but also provide ourselves with a bit of an area for a planter that we can bring in some foliage and sort of block a lot of that sea spray with. I'm also building a second little wall with a drain on it, so that any water that gets over gets drained away before it gets up on the path. Now we're going to use the flower beds and rotate them so that you can use the soil on the back. This is a little bit lighter than mulch, and it looks a bit nicer in that sort of warmer, drier climate than the really sort of rainforest type mulch. And that's just going to cover all the holes in, and as you can see there, we've filled it up. Moving on now, we're on to our keeper beach hut. So I used an inspiration picture of an Australian beach hut in this lovely blue colour with a corrugated plastic roof. It was very modern, a bit of a move away from some of the other buildings, but I think it works really well with these blue penguins. It's sort of a statement piece, and as I say, it's just really there to hide the keeper hut and draw people over to this side of the habitat, and I think it works really well. And of course we added a couple of little gutters on there just for a little bit more realism. There we go, just popping those on. And then we're going to move it into position on the pathway, and then all I've done is just surround the pathway with white timber, and we're just going to build that in there so it looks like it was always part of it. And then on that we will place our talking point and a couple of railings for safety. Now I'm going to get the finishing touches done on these little bits while you guys can have a look at our brand new pond that you saw in the earlier cinematic. Okay then, so it's time to do a little bit of different rock work. So I saw a video from Caesar Creates the other day, and he was talking about how he's using now just only the very tips of each bit of rock to make these little rock formations, and I absolutely loved it. So I've gone out, I've made my own, I've made a couple of them. The one you're seeing on screen is the first one. I think for this habitat I've made roughly 3 or 4. But it's definitely something I'm going to use more often, and I think they look really effective. They don't take away too much of the sight lines, which, considering we've got quite short barriers, is important. And as you can see here, all we've done is just submerge a load of little rocks under the ground, put them together, group them up, and then duplicate them again, move them about. And once I've got a rock formation that I'm happy with, I'll then group it all together, and then we're going to add some foliage. So we're going to use some of the Oceania grassland plants. So we've got some of the Troidia grass here, and then we're also going to use the age-old favourite buffalo grass just to add a little bit more green and foliage to it. There is still no contender for buffalo grass. Use it in every build you make. It is brilliant. Frontier, please give us some more grass. This is amazing. So now that we've got our grouped set of rocks, we're just going to duplicate them, run them around the outside, do a couple of little rock formations in the middle. As I say, what you won't see on camera here is the 2 other ones that I made, but in essence we've just smudged them all together. Then we're going to pop some plants around, although the penguins don't really like a huge amount of coverage. So we've just got a couple of bushes and a couple of palm trees around the outside. And then to finish it all off, we're going to put buffalo grass in big patches everywhere and just submerge that into the ground just so we get these little tufts of grass breaking through, like we did in the Tasmanian devil habitat. And there we go. We're now going to jump over onto our platypus habitat. Now these guys need a lot more rock than the penguins, so all I'm going to do is just go around the whole underwater section with the rock terrain brush, and I'm going to use the same technique I've used in the past where we layer up each texture at about 10 to 20% just so that it gives us the rock in the animal preferences, but at the same time still looks like it's covered in sand and it's got a bit more detail to it than just being one texture. Again, these guys don't like too many plants, so we're going to do some fairly big statement plants and then just leave it at that. So we've got some reeds, and that's just going to cover that join between the penguins and the platypus. And then we're going to bring some plants in just on the sides that the visitors can see. This path running down along to the left there is a staff path, so it doesn't really need to be fully foliaged from there, but more so that they're not just stood at the rocks trying to look over them. And while we're at it, we're also going to throw a few ferns into the rocks themselves just for a quick pop of colour. Oh, and don't forget a token route just for a little bit of realism. Now moving on to the underwater path, we're going to pop down some education boards. We're going to have one for the platypus information, and then we're going to have our second one here for the burrow cam so that they can see them sleeping. As you'll probably see here, there is a fence right through the middle of the burrow. We do sort that out, and you'll see that in the final cinematic. And then up top, we just use some of the posts that we used around the dingoes to mount some education boards for the penguins. And with that, our habitats are finished. So as you can see here, we've got our underwater walkway. This is more so you can see the animals diving, see them swimming. And this works really well for seeing both this side and the view behind us, which shows you the ocean of Nomoi Bay. And then we've got our underwater feeder, so you can watch the penguins deep diving down. And this is way beyond, I think they only need like 2 meters. We've got about 6 meters worth of depth here, but they do use it all, which is really rewarding. And then as we come up to the upper level, we've got a little bit more beautification than was in our previous speed build. I went round and gave it a final pass, load more extra plants. And with that, I'm going to leave you with the cinematics so you can view our wonderful animals in their lovely habitats now. If you did enjoy this episode, please hit the like button. It really helps us out. Don't forget to subscribe for the next couple of episodes to see what happens with Nomoi Bay. And pop a comment down below about what you would like to see in our future zoos. I'll see you next time. Bye guys.
This one is